Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Today we are looking at tips and tricks for Fallout Shelter. Now, whether you're a veteran of the game or you've just picked it up, I'm sure there's something in this video for you. We're going to be talking about a range of different subjects, from combat effectiveness to gathering tons of caps. So without further ado, let's get on with it. Now first we're going to be talking about caps. Caps are the linchpin of the Fallout universe. Now, these small scraps of metal for some reason or another have become one of the major currencies in the wasteland. Your entire vault's future depends on gathering as much of these little scraps of metal as possible. So how might we acquire them? The first and most obvious method comes from task completion. Each time a dweller completes a task like resource gathering or leveling up, there is a chance for you to get a few caps when you tap on the little guy. The likelihood of you acquiring these caps is based on your luck special stat, so make sure to level it up for those dwellers you expect to be seeing a lot of. The number of caps is only small for each, but with the accumulative nature of the vault, if you look after the smaller transactions, they soon add up. There is also the mysterious stranger who will drop by every now and then to give you caps should you find him in the allotted time. Be sure to find him quick or he will skip out on you. The amount of caps seems to be purely random by my accounts, and from my research, but I'm sure there is some complex math involved. The methods outlined so far depend on the time spent within the game and it builds up steadily, but if you're looking to acquire larger amounts of caps in a smaller amount of time, then it's time to send your dwellers out into the wasteland. Any method works here for gathering, but if you want to hit the big numbers, then it takes some preparation. This applies to both missions and exploration. You're going to want to max out your dwellers. Pretty much every stat has some benefit to increasing your cap yield in some way, either directly or indirectly. Make sure to level up their stats first and then max out their experience level after. I'll go more into dweller leveling in a moment. This method of acquiring caps is by far the most efficient, and once your character is leveled up to max, you can send them out on higher missions. A top level game show golem will often yield 24 to 30,000 caps in one trip. Combined with other missions and explorations, you can pretty much assure that you won't run out. Be sure to sell weapons, armor and junk that you're not using as well. It may not seem like a lot, but it really adds up. Next we'll talk about dweller acquisition. When you first start off your vault, people will line up around the block to gain access. This soon starts to fade, however, and when your river runs dry, it's time to look elsewhere. It's important to note that the dwellers you start with are a lot more adept than the ones you acquire later. After the initial rush, there are 3 ways to acquire more of these little ragamuffins. The first, and initially the most accessible, is breeding. Get a boy dweller and a girl dweller to go into the back room and kiss, and suddenly she becomes 9 months pregnant. Amazing, right? You might find this process slow at first, but increasing the dweller's charisma will greatly improve the speed at which this process takes. The second, and the one you will probably use more regularly, once you get tired of breeding farms, is the radio station. The same goes for these dwellers in that you need charisma to make the process faster, but the radio tower skips the infant stage and goes straight for the adult one. Both the babies and the wasteland dwellers will have basically no special stats to begin with. Babies can be born rare or legendary, but it requires a bit of work to make happen. See my guide on making legendary babies by clicking on the info button on the screen. The last method, and probably the least likely to happen regularly, is through lunchboxes. There is a small chance of acquiring dwellers in lunchboxes, but given how few you are afforded for free and how rare the chances are, I wouldn't hold out for this being your primary route. It's worth noting that lunchboxes only give you rare or legendary dwellers, no commons allowed. Next we'll talk about combat. There are 3 main special stats to focus on for your main combat effectiveness, and that's strength, agility and endurance. Maxing these stats will improve your overall combat effectiveness. For information on specific details of each special stat, please see my guide by clicking on the info button on the screen. Combat happens automatically in the wasteland and only appears as text during the exploration, but during the missions you are made responsible for them and it's important to make sure they stay alive. The most important thing when going on a mission is to ensure you have enough meds. Pack plenty of stim packs and radaways. It's better to have more and not need them than to run out. I would also limit the amount of weapons that deal AoE damage, or area of effect damage. This is damage that's spread over an area, not limited to one enemy. These weapons include Fatman launchers, missile launchers, variants, etc. The amount of damage might be the same or similar, but spreading the damage amongst enemies means they all stay alive for longer. It's better to terminate enemies one by one because it reduces the damage done to you. That's not to say you should not use them at all, just keep it to 1 per group. I struggled for a while when it came down to melee dwellers not attacking after they finished off their opponents, and it puzzled me as to why this happened. It turns out there are a number of combat slots in which the dwellers are assigned, and the melee fighter needs to be at the front of the queue in order to be actually hitting anything. The switch for some reason is not automatic and requires a manual touch. If you find your melee dweller not engaging with the enemy, just click and drag him over the opponent and it should begin to attack straight away. I'm not sure why this needs to be manual, whether it's a bug or by design, but it's definitely worth knowing. Now we'll talk about leveling. Just a few quick points on levelling to finish off the video. I mentioned before that it's important to max out special stats before levelling the Dweller. This applies to the Endurance stat, as Endurance acts as a multiplier when levelling up the Dweller. If you want your Dweller to have the most health possible, you will first, at level 1, max out the Endurance, and then give the Dweller the +7 Endurance Wasteland outfit. It's hard to get hold of at first, so if you don't have one, just locate an outfit with the most Endurance you have. Once this is done, you may wish to max out the rest of the stats and power level them to 50. This will give you the ultimate Dweller, an unstoppable force who would arm wrestle Deathclaws. Thanks for watching, I hope this video helped you in your adventures. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, and be sure to check out the rest of my instructional videos. Thanks for watching, hit like and subscribe, and I'll catch you next time. Ciao!